the world recently lost more than just a cinema icon. It lost the ultimate rebel. The recent, tragic passing of Brigitte Bardot has reignited the fire surrounding a life that was as scandalous as it was beautiful. While the world saw a blonde bombshell, the reality was a woman trapped between luxury and misery, a superstar who frequently tried to end it all. Today, we are stripping away the glamour to look at the 55 most scandalous facts about the woman who broke every rule in the book. 1. She was a poor little rich girl. Born on September 28, 1934, Brigitte Bardot came into this world with every luxury at her fingertips. Her father was a wealthy engineer in Paris, and her mother came from money, the daughter of an insurance company director. But no amount of privilege could make young Bardot happy. As affluent as her family was, her home life was utterly miserable. 2. She had a stifling upbringing. Everything about Bardot's childhood was tight, conservative, and oppressively Catholic. Both she and her sister, Manina, were raised to follow specific etiquette and were expected to behave like stiff little marionettes. Her mother didn't even allow her to choose her own friends, and as a result, Bardot grew up terribly isolated. Still, that wasn't even the worst part. 3rd, she suffered her father's wrath. On one traumatizing occasion, Bardot and her sister accidentally broke their parents' most treasured vase, and the repercussions were so horrific, she never forgot it. After learning about the smashed vase, her father flew into a rage and viciously whipped the girls 20 times. And then, to add insult to injury, he pretended they were strangers. Bardot spent her days walking on thin ice, and she despised every second of it. In fact, the whipping incident truly sparked her rebellious nature, and the more she resented her parents, the more she longed to defy them. 4. She had ballerina potential. Throughout World War II, Bardot spent most of her time cooped up inside. To pass the time, she loved putting on one of her favorite records and dancing. Her mother, realizing Bardot's gracefulness and potential, decided to put her in dance lessons. She envisioned a prosperous ballet career for her daughter. But in a delightful twist, these lessons led Bardot to a rather different destiny, and a scandalous one at that. 5. She was undeniably gorgeous. By 1949, Bardot was busy studying ballet at the prestigious Conservatoire de Paris, tutored by the Russian choreographer Boris Knyazev. She was a striking girl in every way, and as such, her sweet face soon caught the eye of the director of Elle magazine, Helene Gordon-Lazareff. Then he made her an offer that changed her life forever. 6. She was a hot commodity. Gordon-Lazareff made Bardot a junior model, and by the next year, she'd already graced the cover of Elle magazine. She was only 15 years old. For such a young girl, these new opportunities blew her small world wide open. Before she knew it, the acting world had also taken notice of her, dropping a huge offer right into her lap. However, there was only one problem. 7. She didn't make the cut. Bardot's parents were scandalized at the thought of their daughter starring in the movies. Luckily, she had one family member in her corner, her grandfather. He believed, if this little girl is to become a whore, cinema will not be the cause. To her dismay, Bardot failed her first audition. But not all was lost. The bearer of bad news just happened to be a very handsome young man. 8. She had an unsuitable suitor. Although Bardot lost the role for Les Lauriers Sont Coupés, she did win the heart of screenwriter and burgeoning director, Roger Vadim. Unsurprisingly, her parents were livid. Vadim was everything they didn't want for their daughter. Bardot, however, saw him as an exciting new venture, describing him as the bohemian type, without any morality. An unsuitable lover was one of Bardot's first forays into unabashed rebellion, and she loved watching her parents squirm. 9. She ruffled feathers. Every time Bardot invited her boyfriend over for dinner, her mother's paranoia spiraled out of control. The moment he'd gone for the night, her mother would feverishly count the silver spoons, certain he was out to pilfer their riches. Behind closed doors, however, they engaged in a love affair so passionate, it ruffled her father's feathers beyond belief. 10. She had an education in seduction. Vadim began to teach Bardot the secrets of the bedroom: passion, seduction, romance. This was a newfound liberation and flew in the face of everything she knew. Her lover was the very antithesis of her father. Incensed by Bardot's behavior, her father became determined to derail his daughter's bliss at all costs and concocted a plan to separate the lovers for good. 11. She tried to end it all. Completely heartbroken at the thought of being torn away from Vadim, Bardot stuck her head into an oven while the fire was on. Although her parents intervened, the incident absolutely terrified them, and they had no choice but to accept the relationship. They did, however, have one condition. They forbade Bardot from marrying Vadim until she turned 18. But a delay to their nuptials didn't faze these two. Instead, they began collaborating professionally, bringing their risky, creative flair to the table. 12. Her lover groomed her. Vadim set out to make Brigitte Bardot a star and did everything in his power to push her into the spotlight. The first step? Exposure. Whenever they frequented a social event, he made sure Bardot was front and center, and that the photographers always got a decent photo of her. He even started bringing her to the attention of other directors and writing scripts tailor-made for her. Bardot absolutely relished in the attention, and before long, her boyfriend's tireless efforts paid off. 13th, she found her niche. Brigitte Bardot won a small debut role in 1952's Crazy for Love. However, it was her next film that truly catapulted her to scandalous new heights. In Manina, The Girl in the Bikini, Bardot spent most of the film wearing tiny bikinis and even had a brief nude scene. This sensuous kind of film would come to define Bardot's niche, and with her effortless beauty, she was well on her way to capturing global adoration. In the meantime, however, the burgeoning actress turned 18, and to her parents' dismay, she kept her word and married her mentor, Roger Vadim. But as Bardot would soon learn, marrying Vadim was a double-edged sword. 14. She was the ultimate fantasy. Bardot's marriage to Vadim meant that her husband now had complete control over her, and as a result, a classic Pygmalion story emerged, with Vadim, the older man, turning Bardot, the impressionable young girl, into the woman of his dreams, or in this case, every man's dream. Bardot was wild and rebellious, and certainly wasn't afraid to show some skin. Molded into every man's fantasy, Bardot was on the brink of becoming a household name. 15. She played a life-changing role. Next up for Bardot, a string of very revealing, light-hearted roles, such as Naughty Girl and Plucking the Daisy. But the film that changed the game, turning her into a bona fide superstar, was none other than 1956's And God Created Woman. With her husband at the helm, the film was both sensuous and serious. Not only was it something new for Bardot, but it also altered the course of her career and love life forever. 16. She was the forbidden fruit. At first, And God Created Woman was just another drop in the ocean. In France, sensuality on film wasn't anything new. For England and America, however, this was a whole new ballgame. During a time when Hollywood suppressed explicit intimacy on screen, Bardot's film soon became the forbidden fruit everybody wanted a taste of. 17. She scandalized the Catholics. Catholics completely condemned Bardot's film and believed that watching the film was equal to a mortal sin. However, this didn't dissuade moviegoers in the slightest. In fact, it had quite the opposite effect, and people flocked to the box office. Whether God made woman or the devil, in the end, it didn't matter. Brigitte Bardot was an absolute hit. Her rising popularity helped loosen Hollywood's stuffy constraints, and critics began to praise this 22-year-old actress for bringing something new and exciting to the table. And what was more, Brigitte Bardot wasn't afraid to bear all. 18. She bared all. Bardot was, and is, proud of her rebellious nature. I gave a new image of the way you should be in life in the movies. New, blonde, free, not stuffy, not hung up, not like a little lady's maid, no little corset, no little collar, but stark naked. She became known for showing off her posterior during a time when it was absolutely scandalous to do so. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Behind the scenes, Bardot's life was even more scintillating than her shocking on-screen reveals. 19th, she betrayed her husband. By the time Bardot became the talk of the town, her marriage to Roger Vadim was on its way out. While on the set of And God Created Woman, she and her co-star Jean-Louis Trintignant shared romantic chemistry that neither of them could deny. In fact, it was Vadim himself who urged them to make the scenes as realistic as possible, possibly fanning the embers of their inevitable affair. Bardot later said of Vadim, "He taught me how to be so free that, as a result, I left him for another man. That was his price to pay." She was so thirsty for new experiences, she never thought twice about shamelessly betraying her husband. 20. She had many lovers. Although Bardot shacked up with Trintignant for 2 years, there were many forces working to tear them apart. Trintignant was a married man and an army man, meaning that his constant absences put a strain on their romance. Not only that, but Bardot continued to pursue another man entirely, falling into the arms of musician Gilbert Bécaud. By 1958, Bardot's tentative relationship with Trintignant was over. Sadly, her response to the breakup was so heartbreaking, it's unforgettable. 21. She resented her celebrity status. Following her breakup, Bardot suffered a nervous breakdown, and many rumors suggested that she'd even tried to take her own life by overdosing on sleeping pills. But sadly, her disintegrating love life wasn't the only thing weighing on her mind. By 1959, the rigors of a celebrity lifestyle were starting to take their toll, and the criticism that followed her around was unrelenting. The naysayers continued to demonize her roles, while out on the street, paparazzi and avid fans dogged her every step. In the midst of all this chaos, Bardot finally found a soft place to land. 22nd, she met her match. Even in the midst of some dark days, Brigitte Bardot managed to spark a romance with her dashing co-star, Jacques Charrier. They had met on the set of Babette Goes to War, and before long, he'd swept her off her feet. But there was something a little bit different about Charrier. Like her, he'd come from a well-to-do background, and unlike her other lovers, he was someone her father might just approve of. But just as everything was looking up, an unexpected surprise rocked Bardot's world. 23rd, she had an unwelcome surprise. When the 24-year-old Bardot found out she was pregnant, her world turned upside down, and not in a good way. At the time, she had absolutely no desire to become a mother, and it was only at the urging of Charrier that she kept the baby and agreed to marry him. But from there on out, their relationship turned sour. Even their wedding day was a total disaster. 24. Her wedding day was a nightmare. According to Bardot, the paparazzi ruined her wedding day. It was terrible. It was a nightmare. The photographers had forced their way into City Hall. It caused a scandal. Still, this was nothing compared to the pressures of raising a child she had never wanted in the first place. In 1960, the news of Bardot's motherhood became the subject of hot gossip. The media was out for blood. 25. She was a horrible mother. Already overwhelmed by fame, Bardot had no idea how to properly raise a child. And so, when Nicholas was born, she felt completely lost at sea. This was not the life she'd signed up for. But that wasn't all. the press began to take stabs at her, ruthlessly attacking her maternal deficiencies. And just when Bardot thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. 26. She gave up her child. With her marriage already on the rocks, Bardot couldn't afford for her tenuous relationship to take another hit. Unfortunately, everything came crashing down when her husband Charrier was shipped off to Nice for a 2-year stint in the army. His absence only fueled her resentment and her growing unhappiness. Consequently, it was never meant to last. 27. She felt trapped. Bardot and Charrier divorced in 1962, but a husband wasn't the only thing she lost. In the end, Charrier gained custody of her son Nicolas. Brigitte Bardot was finally free. For now, more on that later. But even with the weight of motherhood off her shoulders, happiness seemed far out of reach. A normal life was out of the question. She could no longer walk down the street or go out to eat without being harassed by the press. Little did she know, the worst was yet to come. 28th, she faced constant danger. Brigitte Bardot was no stranger to death threats, for even though she had many adoring fans, she also had hordes of haters. However, one traumatizing incident made these dangers far more real than ever before. One day, Bardot found herself in an elevator with a cleaning woman who recognized the star, but this was definitely not a loving fan. That's a wrap on the first 28 scandalous chapters of Brigitte Bardot's life. We've seen her rise from a stifled childhood to becoming a woman who broke the internet before the internet even existed. But believe it or not, we've only scratched the surface of the bombshell. In part 2, the drama reaches a fever pitch as we dive into the diabolical mind games of her directors, her high-stakes run-ins with the law, and the shocking secrets hidden within her most private letters. You won't want to miss the explosive conclusion to the Bardot legend. See you in part 2.